What causes these conditions? Like, why would I just wake up one day and I have a very inflamed gut? I cannot absorb nutrients. I cannot get a good stool. I feel urged to defecate, but when I go to defecate, there's nothing coming out. If it's coming out, it's diarrhea that has blood. Why? How did I end up getting these things? And of course, the answers are always where you are. The answers are always where you are. So I'm going to combine the causes plus the disease process, how it occurs. Some of the causes are actually classified into three major parts. One, genetics. And I've always told you, genetics plays a 2 to 10% of roles in health conditions. 2 to 10%. What actually destroys you is the epigenetics. Epigenetics are the things that actually activate genes that cause diseases. And look at the epigenetics in these causes. We have the immune response, and then we have the environmental triggers. So those are the three causes. An overreacting immune system, and then we have environmental causes that we'll talk about in details, and then now we have the genetics. So these two are going to activate the genetics that will bring you super problems. So when you sit back and say, oh, you know, this one is ours, this one is genetics, I'm looking at you, I'm saying, no, this is your environment. This is your triggers. What are you eating or what are you doing that is actually triggering the genes to cause you diseases? And I've always told you, we don't inherit diseases. We inherit lifestyles and diets that cause diseases. Rather, we inherit diets and lifestyles that actually activate genes that cause us diseases. So as you sit there in your comfort zone saying, oh, you know, because I have this disease, my father had it, my uncle had it, it is in our family. That is you identifying with disease, which means you don't have an identity. That is one. Number two, you want to accept that so that you sit in the comfort zone and you don't do anything about it, because in your head already, you've been conditioned to think that your health is in a hospital. So you're sitting there thinking, oh, possibly this is in the genes, so the only thing I need to do is to go to hospital for a surgery or for medication. It's time for us to do something. And I'm foreseeing a future of people who are literally finding solutions to your healthcare problems rather than finding solutions in hospitals. That's why when hospitals go on a strike, when doctors, nurses, and all these people go on a strike, people die like flies. Because they handed over their power to the institutions and they trusted the institutions. And once you trust that institutions, you become a slave to that institution. So therefore, it's you. The power is within you. There is nothing from about that is coming to save what is coming from within. Please. Whatever is within you. Imagine you trusting me to fix your gut when you can actually fix your gut. You only need me to guide you in fixing the gut. How hard is that? How hard is that? Like, I just guide you to be better. Rather than waiting for you to come so that I can exploit you and then now give you temporary solutions. It's like ule fundi wa radio. You take your radio to him, you trust him, this guy will make this radio for me. And then this guy fixes your radio temporarily. So that as you go home, you take about a month and you're back. You take just about a month and you're back. So he's actually expecting you to come back. That's the same thing that is happening in the health institutions. So again, this radio guy who is actually doing that for you is the same radio guy who will come to hospital, and I'll do the same to him. You see how it's going around? He exploits you here for the radio. He comes here, I exploit him through his consultation, and I give him temporary solution through giving him PPIs, omeprazoles, pantoprazoles, and I give him antacids. So that the money that he took from me is just going to come back here. And the money that I've taken from him will go back to somebody else. It's always that way. That's why we live an average life when you have super titles. So let me take you to the causes. I've told you already we classify the causes into three: the genetics, environmental triggers, and of course, immune response. I want you to keep note or to put your concentration on the environmental triggers and of course, the immune response. This is where the problem comes in and this is where trouble comes to set in. So let's go back to the drawing board. So let's talk about the pathophysiology. Remember, we've talked about the integrity of the gut wall, right? So we've talked about how things which we are going to talk about will affect the integrity of the gut wall to cause inflammation, and then the same things will cause a trigger in the immune system, and this immune system starts to overreact and destroy the gut wall. Imagine your own immune system waking up one day to destroy your intestines. So we've said number one is genetics, 2% to 10%, but genetics Genes have to be activated by something, the epigenetics. So the things that I'm going to talk about here are the things that actually represent the epigenetics. The epigenetics. So listen to this. The immune dysregulation. When you say dysregulation, it means we have lost the ability to regulate our immune system. So it starts to overreact. This is how people get the autoimmune. And you will see there are books that classify this condition as an autoimmune. Hello? As an autoimmune, meaning your own immune cells are actually destroying your tissues. How? How is that even making sense? Like tomorrow you just wake up and your immune cells are actually destroying your liver. And now you have to suppress your overreacting immune system. So what caused the overreacting immune system? So that we suppress the cause, not suppress this symptom of overreacting immunity. So listen. One, the immune system overreacts to the gut microorganisms causing inflammation. Hello? In your gut, you have microorganisms, viruses, fungi, bacteria, protozoa. All of them are there, and they are there for a reason. Imagine your gut it has a lot of microorganisms that are even more than your own body cells. Trillions of them there. What are they doing here? And this is when you start asking yourself, why do I even take antibiotics? Because in your gut, you have trillions of microorganisms, 10 times the number of your cells, your normal cells. What are they doing here? And they're even more than our cells. And how do we even get to balance them so that they don't kill us or they don't cause us diseases? And why do we hate them? Why have we been made? How have we been made to hate these microorganisms to an extent that we want to kill them instead of fixing our own system so that the good bacteria can actually suppress the bad bacteria? That is normal therapy. There's a reason why we tell you to eat fermented cabbage, to eat kefir, to drink kombucha, all these things. There's a reason why we tell you to do that, the kefir. Because they are pro and prebiotics. They come with the microorganisms plus the fiber that actually makes sure that your gut is populated with the best microorganisms. But the pharmaceutical companies knew this, so they brought you fake probiotics. So that as you take it, it's for your psychology. You're thinking, oh, these are the best guys. They gave me antibiotics and then they added me a probiotic. But look at it this way. If I have an industry that is making drugs for the gut, how will I provide solutions to you? See, I'll run out of business. Story for another day. Anyway, so one, these gut microorganisms, one, we have the good ones and we have the bad ones. That is not your role to know. The body understands that. That's why those bacteria are there. You are not the one who put them there. We get them from the first exposure to microorganisms when we are giving birth naturally. A child gets that. And that is the first layer of immunity apart from the skin. So these microorganisms, the good ones, suppress the population of the bad ones because they compete for food, for space, and all that. And the fight that is in your gut makes sure that the good bacteria are higher than the bad bacteria so that we suppress them. We don't destroy them, we just suppress them so that they don't cause us issues. So therefore, we have to provide an environment that is optimal for the growth and development of good bacteria. I know most of you get cravings without understanding where are these cravings coming from. They're actually hailing from the population of the gut microorganisms. So if your gut is populated with microorganisms that are used to digesting carbohydrates, your cravings are totally carbohydrates because they want to be fed. So when you start eating healthy, they start to die, you start to suppress them, and then now you grow healthy bacteria that will be there to actually ensure that you don't have the bad cravings. Now you know, apart from insulin resistance, we also have now gut microorganisms causing us cravings. But these gut microorganisms, the bad ones, produce things that are called lipopolysaccharides. These are things that are on the cell membrane or cell wall of the gut bacteria. And these lipopolysaccharides are the ones that actually perforate the gut. Okay? They are okay when they are in the gut, inside the gut. But when they get access to the gut wall and they get access to the blood system, they actually activate your immune system. And then your immune system does not recognize them. So when it's activated, it has to keep a memory. And then any one of them that is coming in again has to be destroyed. Now, sometimes they cause an overreaction in the immune system. Now, the immune system misbehaves. And there is an organ that God designed perfectly to always remind the immune system, hey, do not overreact. This is our own cells, because for your own cells, they have a marker, a green light. They are always lighting a green light. So the immune system knows, oh, that one that has green is ours. We cannot target them. But these lipopolysaccharides, they come and topple off that marking. And now these cells have no marker to say, I am your own cell. And now the immune system starts to destroy every single cell that doesn't have a marker, including your gut cells. Look at that. So as you feed on the carbohydrates, you populate your gut with the bad bacteria. And I'm not saying carbohydrates are bad. I'm saying as you feed on those processed carbohydrates, as you overfeed yourself on the foods that are non-essential, and of course carbohydrates are in the group of foods that are non-essential. That's why we do not have any deficiency condition for carbohydrates. And if you stop eating carbohydrates, you will not die. Have you ever heard of somebody who died because they did not eat carbohydrates? They do not have a deficiency condition, so stop eating them all the time. If you can, do the whole carbohydrates that are coming from the farm. Okay? Good. So these lipopolysaccharides, they topple off the markings, and that becomes a problem because now immune system starts to target the cells that actually have no marking, even if they're your own cells. And this makes the gut to suffer. So there's a gland that suppresses the overreacting immunity. Have you ever asked yourself, why is it that when I have an autoimmune disease, where my immune system is actually targeting my own cells, why am I injected with a corticosteroid? Why am I injected with a steroid, hydrocortisone, dexamethasone? There's another one called diprofos. Why am I injected this in rheumatoid arthritis? Have you ever asked yourself that question? And the answers are here, of course. You inject yourself with that cortisol or that steroid because your body is unable to produce natural steroids. Therefore, we have to supplement with an external steroid. Look at it this way. Which organ produces the steroids in the body? Natural steroids. It is the adrenal glands, the gland that is on top of your kidneys. So when that gland is compromised, thank you so much, Maki. When that gland is compromised, you cannot produce cortisol. If you cannot produce cortisol, you are unable to control the immune system because the cortisol is the one that reminds the immune system, hey, please do not overreact. So when you're not having enough cortisol, and cortisol is a stress hormone, so when you have it on excess, problems. But when you're producing it enough, it will tell your immune system, please, these are our own cells, do not target them. And that's why when you have arthritis, the rheumatoid arthritis, you will go for diprofos injection, which is a steroid injection, and that is to supplement the production of the steroids from the adrenal glands. However, when you take an external shot of a steroid, you're actually telling the adrenal glands, I can get it from otherwise, from somewhere else, so you don't have to give it to me. And what do? They shut down. When they shut down, more inflammation. So now you'll have to rely on a 3-month injection of that steroid in your knees. So the reason why we inject steroids is because we have failed to produce natural steroids. So now we have to go for a synthetic steroid. So these adrenal glands are very necessary in actually suppressing IBD. So wake up the adrenals. And how do you wake up the adrenals? You stop injecting yourself with steroids. If you have asthma, why are you always on steroids, the prednisolone, instead of dropping the wheat? If you're on any chronic stress, any chronic condition like arthritis, please, arthritis is fixed in the kitchen. Please go and fix the kitchen and let the steroids go. Steroids, they actually destroy the gut wall, just the same way non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs do. They actually thin the wall of the gut, and now they expose it to the bacteria, they expose it to the acid. And that's why people who take steroids for the longest period of time, they end up having the ulcers. And they end up having bone problems because they are unable to absorb calcium. They end up having anemia and weaker. The bone marrow is actually weakening because they cannot absorb nutrients from the gut. Look at that, the bigger picture. So as you take those steroids, ladies, to lighten your skin, this is what you're going to get. You're going to get kidney problems, you're going to get heart problems, you're going to accumulate water around your face. So you'll have a round face that looks like the moon face, but literally you're actually suffering. You're going to have very weak bones. You're going to have osteoporosis. You're going to have diabetes, yes, because actually the steroids tell the liver to produce sugar. Imagine that. So you will end up having problems with diabetes. And there's a question that I always ask myself. Diabetes type 1, We are told all the time it's an autoimmune. Why is it that in diabetes type 1 we don't inject a steroid to suppress the overacting immunity? Why do we give you insulin instead of giving you a steroid? Well, I hope there can be an answer here so that I can learn from you guys. Because if it's an autoimmune, why are we giving you now insulin therapy, which will actually make you more diabetic? Why are we doing that? Why don't we give you a steroid to suppress the overreacting immunity? Anyway, story for another day. So yes, so that is what you should know about the immune dysregulation. So therefore, when you hear them telling you that IBD is an autoimmune, tell them this. Where is this autoimmune coming from? Why don't we handle the autoimmune? Why don't we just raise the gut microorganisms? And again, on this note of the leaky gut, because you see, as we perforate the gut, we call that a leaky gut. We open up the gut wall, we start having allergies to eggs, to protein. We blame the protein instead of blaming the wheat and the seed oils and the drugs, the steroid drugs, and the sodas for opening up our gut wall. So when the gut is good when it's intact, but when you open it up like this is what we call the leaky gut. And this leaky gut allows content of the stomach to actually pass through the gut wall and come to the other side. And when the immune system sees that, it doesn't recognize anything that is coming from the gut. Therefore, it has to target those components that are coming in. And that's how you start getting an overreacting immunity, and that's how we start getting the autoimmune condition. So therefore, autoimmune conditions can easily disappear when you fix the gut. Amazing stuff, right? Amazing stuff. But what do we choose to do? We choose to focus on what the syllabus says, the guidelines. So that we can keep having the messed up gut, we can keep eating our wheat in form of brown color now, we can continue eating drinking sodas from their industries. We can go and take their supplements, but our gut will still be messed up. Now that we can avoid eggs, because if you avoid eggs, we'll get better. But you avoid eggs, but you still have the allergies, you still have the asthma, you still have the diabetes and the hypertension. So you avoid eggs, but still consume the seed oils, the wheat, the sugars, the processed foods, the fizzy drinks, and the processed foods from the industries. And then we hope to get better. No, we can't. Fix the gut and see what happens to you. It doesn't take a lot of time. Very good skin, mental prowess, no autoimmune conditions, nothing like IBD. Anyway, let's continue. Number 2, we've said disruption of the endothelial lining or the barrier. So you see, 1, we said we are regulating or dysregulating the immune system so that it gets to overreact to get an autoimmune. But before we even activate that immune system or super activate it to give us autoimmune, we must mess up the gut so that the gut content, the bacteria, the food particles get to the immune system. So this is what is going to happen here as number 2. We are now thinning the wall of the intestine. We are now causing perforations in the leaky gut. We are now causing a very, very weak gut, and now we are exposing it to the acid for further destruction. We are exposing it to digestive enzymes like trypsin that is coming from the pancreas to cause more problems. So number 2, we've said you destroy or you actually disrupt the barrier that actually has to protect your gut wall. Now listen, this gut wall is the one that separates the gut microorganisms from destruction of the wall. So we must have a thick layer of mucus that actually surrounds the gut. But where are we getting that mucus from? Mucus is 95% water. So therefore, somebody who is suffering IBD, rehydration plus of salt and water is actually number 1 on the list of therapy. Same to people who have ulcers. Some of you just have ulcers because you are dehydrated. So you're thinking when you drink water, you're getting better. As you drink water without adding salt, you're getting more dehydrated. So you're getting more ulcers and IBD. So anytime you drink water, even if it's a cup, add a pinch of salt or lick some salt and then drink that water. See how that gut will start to grow thick and see how you protect yourself from these problems. Number 2, microorganisms in the gut have to be protected. Grow the best microorganisms in the gut by eating healthy. But avoid misuse and overuse of antibiotics. Ladies and men, every time you're having a common cold or a cough, you're running to buy amoxicillin or augmentin or azithromycin or erythromycin or cephalexin or cefixime or cefuroxime, whatever the case of antibiotics that you're taking, oral antibiotics for that matter. So some of you even have a common cold that is viral and you're heading to buy antibiotics from the shop or from the pharmacy. Nowadays, even antibiotics are sold in the shops, by the way. So as you take those antibiotics every time and you start taking these antibiotics and giving them to your children at an early stage, so you totally mess the gut microorganisms. You destroy them because most of these antibiotics are broad spectrum. So they clear both the good and the bad bacteria equally. And then once that is done, the first symptom you experience is a diarrhea after taking antibiotic therapy because you swept off the good bacteria that maintain the gut. And now when you sweep off all these bacteria that maintain the gut, what do you expect? A gut problem. We call it gut dysbiosis, an imbalance in the gut microorganisms because you're taking antibiotics. And as you're taking those antibiotics, you're actually taking foods and the products from the industries. You're actually binging yourself on seed oils, the sugars in all forms, wheat products, chocolates, soda. And that's how you start messing up the stomach environment. Antibiotics destroy your gut totally. So therefore, the least amounts of antibiotics, I can't remember the last time I took an antibiotic. Leave alone an antibiotic, a medication, even a paracetamol. But some of you, every day, every weekend, antibiotics. Your children are taking all these bottles of antibiotics. How will they miss out on inflammatory bowel disease? So I've told you about disruption of the epithelial barrier. I've told you about destruction of the gut microorganisms and the microbiome, the gut dysbiosis. I've told you about the immune dysregulation. Once you have that in mind, IBD, ulcers, H. pylori have nothing on you. And let me tell you things that actually destroy your gut wall. One is gut dysbiosis, the irregular or the disbalance in the gut microorganisms. Number two, drugs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, NSAIDs, diclofenac, ibuprofen, meloxicam, aceclofenac, celecoxib. These are the drugs that you people use to kill pain in arthritis, in headaches, in menstrual cycles, all these things. Those painkillers that you go and buy over the counter, one, they will destroy your kidneys, and number two, they're actually destroying your gut because they cause perforations directly. They are highly acidic. Number two, they destroy the layer that covers, it's called the prostaglandins, that actually cover and protect your gut wall. So they expose that gut wall to bad bacteria and to the acid. So therefore problems. Also, steroids, dexamethasone, prednisolone, hydrocortisone, what else? Beclomethasone. They end with on, 1. Those are the drugs that actually thin the gut wall. Number four, dehydration. You drinking water without adding salt. You get dehydrated, you destroy the gut wall and the integrity of the gut.